Excuse me, guys. So, today's lesson is all about the economy of the South. And yes, we'll get into slavery and the conditions of slavery in this in this um in this lesson. But I want to preface this video lesson by addressing the stuff that happened earlier this year when it comes to racial injustice and all that stuff, all this stuff that is happening in 2020 that we are giving light to because it's harmful and it's bad and it's corrupt. Racial injustice is very bad. And American history is full of racial injustice. Those are some of the darkest parts of our history, racial injustice. So I want you guys to be aware of that as we go into some of these dark parts of American history. And I always remember this phrase that my history teacher said to me. It goes something like this. We remember history so we don't repeat it. So keep an open mind and really pay attention. So here we go. So today's lesson is called King Cotton. And in this part of the lesson, I'm going to be talking about the economic boom that the cotton gin had on the South. In the late 18th century, a recent Yale graduate named Eli Whitney had aspirations of practicing law. However, like many modern college graduates, Whitney had a debt to repay for his education. To that end, Whitney left his home in Massachusetts to take a tutoring position on a Georgia plantation. Whitney found himself in the midst of an active agricultural economy. Tobacco, rice, and sugar were vital crops, and cotton cultivation was showing great promise. A stable slave culture was in place in the South, providing labor for southern plantations. However, the time-consuming process for harvesting cotton limited the prosperity of plantation owners. So, because we are talking about the economy of the South and not just cotton, I'm gonna list out vast agricultural economy, tobacco, rice, indigo, and of course, cotton played a vital roles in the agricultural economy of the South. Whitney employer Kathleen Green asked the educated Whitney if he could devise a solution. He set aside his aspirations to practice law and began tinkering with plans for a hand crank machine that would separate the sticky cotton from its seeds. Whitney successfully created such a machine in 1793, along with a larger version that could be powered by horses or water. So this development, known as the cotton gin, easy to pick. Cotton, right? That was the whole goal. So with the development of the cotton gin, short for engine, cotton rapidly surpassed tobacco, rice, and sugar as the number one southern crop. So that began to boom. Cotton prices, cotton production began to boom. Cotton production increased 800%, 800% over the next 10 years with assistance from Whitney's invention. The cotton gin brought Southerners unprecedented prosperity. With the ability to process cotton at a faster rate, Southern plantation owners needed to increase their labor force. The already large slave system in the South became larger as slaves were smuggled into the country. Because remember, slave importation had been deemed illegal from 1808 on. Slave women were encouraged, and in some cases enticed with promises of freedom, to have children and build up the slave owners' labor force, all to increase the cotton harvest. So I gave you this philosophy a few lessons ago, but I won't do it again. So the cotton gin made it easy to produce. So more slaves, this was the philosophy back in the day. More slaves equals more cotton. More cotton equals more money. That was the philosophy of Southern plantation owners back in slave days. The thriving cotton industry led to the rise of the large-scale commercial agriculture. Not only did increasing cotton milling result in an increased number of slaves, but planters also worked to augment their land ownership to make more money. Some land was taken from the Indians who were being removed from the Southeast during this period. Also, large plantation owners were buying out smaller plantations to increase their land holdings, and those planters who were bought out moved westward. The motto of Southerners became "Cotton is King," and they were happy to serve a ruler who provided such prosperity. So this whole slogan, more slaves equals more cotton equals more slaves, that philosophy became known as King Cotton. Southerners were not the only ones benefiting from the cotton boom. 80% of the South's cotton went to England by way of northern shippers. These shippers were able to buy cotton wholesale and sell it at a premium, since England's most important manufactured good was cotton cloth. 1/5 of the plantation population in England earned a living from the manufacture of the cloth, and 75% of the cotton used in England's production came from the United States. Since England was so dependent on the South's cotton and the North's transportation of it, both the North and the South were able to benefit heavily from this export. The many people who gained wealth from cotton were willing to disregard the implication that a one crop economy could not be sustained. Planters ignored the fact that King Cotton was hard on the soil, especially with the frenzied harvesting that was taking place during this era. There were other drawbacks to the cotton industry as well. The cotton gin made production potentially greater, but it also made the labor source more unstable. The slaves required to operate the cotton gins could get sick or injured in great numbers, rendering plantation owners unable to harvest the crops growing on their land. The cotton-based economy, who promoted a... See you guys in the next part.